Today, I'm speaking with Jamie and Jim Shiels, the founders of 18 Summers and the Family Board Meeting. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about priorities. And we're going to talk about the fact that if you have children after 18 summers, well, they're leaving the house. So enjoy until they're there and build those relationships while you're having your kids at home. Enjoy the conversation with Jamie and Jim Shiels. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today I am delighted to speak with a couple. Not only do they live together, but they work together. They are amazing entrepreneurs, fascinating journey. They came up with this concept called 18 Summers. We're going to speak about family. We're going to speak about entrepreneur. We're going to speak about business. And we're going to speak about life with none other than Jamie and Jim Shiels. So good to see you guys.
Good to see you, Eric.
Great to see you, Eric.
Great to see you again, bud.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for taking the time. I know it's been a challenge to have our calendar at the same time, but as I always like to start, what is your journey? And if you can start explaining your individual journey and then your common journey, so that gets you to this point today.
It's quite a blending. So Jim always had his background in real estate and business, my background being in education. He was always very entrepreneurial. I was too, but I didn't really know what entrepreneurial was. We were both kind of on our own paths, doing our own journeys in life, waiting to find one another, I'd like to think. And unfortunately, I was in a negative relationship at an early age. I had my two boys and at a young age had full custody of both of them. And when I met Jim, we all had trust issues and were a little shy, but we were really excited. And what was really wonderful about Jim was that the boys never knew if Jim was showing up to play with me or to play with them. And so they, absolutely loved and adored him right away, just as he adored the boys. We came together as a blended family. And as that occurred, my education and Jim's entrepreneurship just melded so beautifully together. And as he was deepening and learning, navigating that relationship with the boys and myself, he came up with the framework for the family board meeting.
That's something that's very interesting, especially from somebody like me coming from Belgium, that's kind of concept is not really well known, I would say. What can you tell us about the family board meeting? How does that work compare to a traditional board meeting of a company? And how did you develop that? What is the impact of that?
Well, the family board meeting is just like entrepreneurial companies usually have a quarterly board meeting. And the quarterly board meeting is usually, at least in my assumption, it's to reunite the team and look ahead to the next 90 days, right? That's what I always thought a quarterly real board meeting with an entrepreneurial group. So when the boys came into my life at the age of 7 and 5 and asked me to adopt them, holy cow, here's an entrepreneur who's super busy and wanting to make this work. And so we started this tradition. It started out as what were called Jim coupons. This is before, they called me dad. And so I said, yeah, call me what you want. Love you just the same, but let's start with Jim days. So the first Christmas, we gave out 4 coupons. And we said, every quarter, you can cash one of these in. So the first question of a 7 and 5-year-old is, well, what's a quarter? So I had to explain, every 90 days, you're going to be able to have a Jim day, and it's whatever you want to do. My phone's off. It's just you and I, and that's it. And that became the framework for the family board meeting, because the blended families, I've always heard of these nightmares. We haven't had that night. I stepped in a role that was lacking and needed, and they were yearning for, just like any 7 and 5-year-old for a father figure, and being divorced and getting full custody. And they wanted that. And I wanted that too. And these days made such an impact, Eric. It was just, you couldn't have written a better story of what these days did. And it was a very simple framework. And I started to share this quite shyly at some of our mastermind groups that you and I met in. And people were like, oh my gosh, this simple thing is so incredible. And I was kind of twisted on the arm to write the book with Jamie. And we wrote this book and it kind of went viral. and something we were never expecting.
And it was totally grassroots. I mean, I think we had like an $800 budget. I was nursing a baby. It was 2 a.m. I hit publish, never done anything like this. And it's had a real underground following. And we did the math recently because we're about to do like a formal launch with a publisher and all that stuff. So we're about to redo all that. But looking back and thinking, doing the math, we think that we've impacted 300,000 families with this book. And we're hoping to get it with this launch to 2 million is our hope, so that every family, can embrace this idea of one-on-one time and really deepening and strengthening their relationships.
300,000 families. And if you take an average of 2 children, that's 4. That's mean you impacted over 1 million people already.
That's
what we're excited. Yeah.
Not what we expected, especially from one very simple rhythm. I mean, it's nothing, it's nothing complex, but it's really effective. And we saw it. And then as we shared it, other people shared it. And yeah, it's nice to see something so simple can have such a big impact.
Yeah. And then, you say something that I think is very important. And when say you have one day with Jim, phones off. Mm-hmm. And I see, unfortunately, too many families, and we go to dinner, kids are on their phone at the table, not really listening or talking. And also, and I don't know if it's just the people we've met, we moved 10 years ago here, that I have sometimes the feeling that it's each family here, it's you live in an hotel, you go in for dinner whenever you want. And at home, we have dinner every day all together. There's no way that you're going to eat on your own. If you have your schedule, you adapt your schedule, you have a homework to do, great, but we eat together. And those moments are so important. Is it just me, or is it something that you're witnessing as well?
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Remember that we came up, I taught at some schools up in New Jersey, and I remember one of the principals sharing a study with me 60 years ago in the US anyway, our average dinner time was just under 90 minutes.
Wow.
90 minutes. And then as of like 2017, you want to know what the average dinner time was? Just under 12 minutes. Just under 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's gone from almost 90 minutes, which seems like in today's world, like, what the heck were they doing? What took them so long to eat? Where there wasn't this rush, there was communication, there was talking.
Food prep is part of it, and cleaning up is part of it.
Yeah, they were saying 12 minutes total. And normally we found that people were rushing off to something, and that was part of the problem, instead of being there with what's right in front of them. So the dinner time challenge through the pandemic was something that we actually started to use, meaning that, look, we're all getting inundated with news and tweets and all of this social media. Turn it all off for an hour, right around dinner time. We called it the dinner time challenge. So for 1 hour, everyone in the house's electronics media is off. And man, did that do wonders to not only us to have a decompression time, but for so many others.
Well, nobody's rushing off, because if we're sitting at the table and you know that your phone is off for this period of time, they're like, well, I might as well sit here because I don't have anything else to do. And it's really nice too, because what we started doing, we learned from our mutual friend, Joey Coleman. We do best and weirdest every night at dinner. And so what was the best part of your day and what was the weirdest part of your day? And it's such a fun way to start camaraderie and communication. And it really extends into, oh, I didn't realize you had a test today, and then you can expand upon whatever their best and weirdest is. Our children, I think it was Maggie, our daughter, changed it into fun and freaky. What was the funnest and what was the freakiest part of the day? So sometimes it's fun and freaky, sometimes it's best and weirdest. We've heard it called a couple of things, but it's a really fun time to engage.
Yeah, I love it. And what we do for many years in our house, we ask, what are the 3 best things of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as always, yeah. And I remember we did that even the day my father passed away, which was obviously very hard. I could still find 3 other things that were good things that day. Obviously not that, but just that helps me always coming back to them and say, you remember, even so when they say, I don't have anything good today, say, no, you can always find something good. But what I love with your concept of 18 summers, Well, by the way, today with kids staying longer at home, it's probably 25 summers.
Every time I go to type my email
we're not sure that's a good thing.
The one is right next to the 2. So when it's Jamie Lee at, and I try to do 18, it oftentimes goes 28. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't be here at 28. But it's great that, we have a 20-year-old this summer in the house. And, we keep telling him, like, it's so great that you have this space to flex into finding what it is that you want to do, that you can maybe flounder and fail a little before you launch. You can get financially stable before you go, really creating that container, and us focusing on 18 summers and creating that time and space has also given him the confidence in our relationship and in our support that he can go at the pace that he needs to go at. Now he's a charter fisherman. He has his own business. He's paid for all of his own stuff, but just to have that container of support is so important. He knows he can lean on that because of these relationships that we've built. That's phenomenal. I think that's extremely important, especially when I see in my own kids, the pressure that those kids have at school with the tests, with the SAT, the finding the college, the this, the that. I mean, let them be kids first and build confidence. And quite frankly, if you look at it, pick the 10 most important people, 10 people that you know about that you would take as a model, and then ask them, which college did they go to? Nobody has any idea. But I just want to come back to this idea of 18 summers, where basically your kid's going to be with you for 18 summers. You have to enjoy it. You have to prepare it. Time goes fast. How do you translate? And I love that idea. How do you translate that in the family board meeting? And how do you translate it? How do you advise people to live their life, to plan their time, to fix their priorities based on that?
Yeah, well, first off, they don't stop being your kids after 18, but the stats and the math are there. It was at our friend Nicole, Derek and Melanie's Cadre event. I remember there was a famous author there, and he talked about a study that showed almost 85% of the time the average person gets with their child is by the end of the 18th summer. And that starts to make sense, because think about it. Your 19-year-old is probably not going to hang out with you as much as your 9-year-old. They have different social lives and different parts of their, adventure of their own journey going on. So if you do those first 18 right, I think they're going to come back for more. But your time is fleeting. Any way you look at it, you can expand some of that time, but you really want to make the most of those time. And when people start to do that, I can see when I'm on stage, I do that simple math equation. You have 18 summers, or the average person normally spends most of their time. And I can see the math going on. Wow, my son's 11. Oh, my daughter's 4. And what it is a positive motivation. And we have to work. We have to provide, right? But we don't want to miss this time. So how do we mark the times? As you said, you want to make your meetings breathtakingly memorable. I think that's what you said about your mission. Well, that's the same marking of moments I wanted to have with my children. So for now 12 years, with these boys who are now 17 and 19. Jamie keeps jumping him to 20. He's almost there.
Like 2 months.
2 months. So, but for the last 12 years, every quarter I have a day with each of them and each of my children now. And that day is one-on-one with no electronics on and something that they've planned for the day. And I go all in. And Eric, those simple board meetings, these family board meetings, have marked the times of our relationship, kept us strong, gotten us to know each other, uncover hidden gifts and talents that they have, understand how they tick, and just have fun together. And it is the guideposts of our relationship. And I look back, I loved my dad. I lost my dad on Christmas Day last year, similar timing to you, about a year later. And I loved him when we had a really strong relationship at the end. But Eric, I never had a day a quarter with my dad growing up. And I thought, wow, what would our relationship have been like? What guidance would I have gotten? So it's more of almost semi-selfish thing. The things I wish I had, I'm able to give now to my children. And this is what can mark the times. And I don't want to, because how many times do we wake up as entrepreneurs and go, oh my gosh, it's October. What happened?
Yep.
I don't want to do that. And what Jamie had said, I remember she said, it's almost like that slowdown in time where you're face to face, there's no distractions, and these moments are really marked in these days.
So I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, if an entrepreneur follow your journey or follow your recommendation, Actually, yes, it's going to be great for the children, and it's going to be great for the entrepreneur, her or himself, to recenter and to be able to fix their priority or be aware of what's important in life.
Yeah.
Have you had that breakthrough with people you've been talking to?
Absolutely. I think so much, I just read a meme yesterday and I feel like I reread it all the time. And it's such a good reminder to me as we heal ourselves, we're also healing our children and our children's children. And it even goes back a generation, it seems, because those that are watching you are then, wow, I need to bring more intentionality. I need to slow it down. I need to whatever. But just thinking about all the things in which we're able to bring that weren't provided for us, or the experiences that we didn't have, and that healing that we're gaining through being able to do these things with our children, are really bringing that greater awareness to them, and intentionality and a purpose that we didn't receive as children. And it's not to put our children on pedestals, but it's to connect with them and truly get to know them. And in turn, I really think truly getting to know ourselves. Our daughter, Maggie, is an artist. I mean, she's constantly creating things. I know that she received that skill from me. I don't sit and do it as often as I should. And it reminds me when I see her doing that and I'm connected to her and I'm seeing her and I'm present and I'm providing all these materials for her, I'm like, hey, girl, you like to do that too. And it's such a good reminder. But to piggyback on what Jim said too, islands of consistency and rhythms are so important. And so using the family board meeting strategy, or best and weirdest, the family dinner challenge, all of these things really bring us to a place of consistency, of rhythm, and of things in which our children keep wanting to come back to. As you said earlier, creating moments and experiences in an environment that they want to keep returning back to even after that 18th summer. So things like mom's sausage balls, pancakes on Sunday, Christmas stockings, that trip to Florida once a year, whatever it may be that they count on and they depend on in that cadence.
Well, and I want to see, I think the real coming of age of this, Eric, will I be okay if 20 years from now, I see my children playing hooky from work and their children playing hooky from school to spend the day together? You bet. Absolutely. Like, that's my hope, because when it all comes said and done, like the day you lost your dad, I guarantee you weren't like, gosh, dang it, I missed that day at school and dad and I hung out for that whole day together. I mean, let's put priority in priority position. And that's our hope of this, that what we've done of prioritizing this quality time and this one-on-one time together, and they see Jamie and I take one-on-one time.
Date night's huge.
This concept we have, Eric, is let's separate the parts to strengthen the whole. So each of us has a strong relationship and we come together as a whole. And that's our hope, is this becomes ingrained in them, because that's something I'd be proud for my children to pass on. This is a habit and a rhythm. If they pass it down, I've seen what it's done for us. I'm just excited for my own grandchildren to be doing this.
And I don't want to be pontificating, but if you do that, you have better children, you have better children, you have better human beings, better for the society.
Yes.
As simple as that.
Yes. Well, and you of all people who you'll be coming on our podcast, what your family's gone through has seen the worst of humanity, where we have the ability to try to be on the absolute far side of that. And I know simple little rhythms like this, oh, you're overreacting. I don't think so. I think so many problems start at home. And that means so many solutions can start at home, and so much healing can start at home. And that's just how Jamie and I really approach things. And it might be oversimplified, but we really believe in it.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning that as well. And I'm not going to downplay it, because yes, it's hard to move countries and stuff like that. Thank God we haven't seen the worst of humanity. And I always think about, the people that were in a concentration camp, things like that.
The generation before. Yeah. You guys, and you can see you are moving. I look at you as knowing you as a friend for a year. You just see a movement in a better direction, which gives me hope. I know there's lots of things that we all get concerned about, but I also see things of hope where it's moving in the right direction. Hopefully that's
agree. Absolutely agree.
Justified optimism, I'm hoping.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely. Always coming back to Frankel and the people have the choice in their mind. It's so powerful. Now what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Freedom to choose.
Absolutely. Man's search for meaning. Yep. Viktor Frankl. when you go back to the board meeting, the family board meeting, so I'm sure you've never fired anybody from your board, but how do you design the agenda? Is it something that Jamie and you said, okay, this is what we're going to be discussing, or the kids can come up and say, this is an item I would like to discuss during the family board meeting? How did that work?
So the family board meeting is, again, more about individual time. So everyone thinks we believe you got to separate the parts to strengthen the whole. So the family board meeting is really about every quarter, Jamie and I each having at least a half day with each of our children one-on-one. So what we do to do that is we set it on our calendar, like a very important meeting, because it's, as far as I'm concerned, these are our most important investors in my life, clients, whatever you want to call them in the entrepreneurial terms. So we schedule it. And every quarter with each of my children, holy cow, I'm up to 5 now. I have a half day with them, at least 4 or 5 hours. And they plan the day. It's not about me. If you and I like the Miami Dolphins and we're going to go to a Miami Dolphins game, well, that's not what they want to do. We didn't really hit the mark.
Exactly.
You let them plan the day and go all in. And we only have 3 rules, Eric. Is one, it's going to be one-on-one. Jamie, as much as I love her, she's not invited, and vice versa. Their best friend's not invited. My best friend's not invited. Their siblings are not invited. My friend's not invited. It's just the 2 of us, one-on-one. That puts the magnifying glass on the relationship in a positive way. The second thing is there's no, we call it intermittent tech fasting.
Say that again?
Intermittent tech fasting. You've heard of intermittent fasting, right?
Yep.
Intermittent fasting, which is great for muscle recovery, muscle tone, organ revitalization. You're not giving up eating, but you're having a disciplined approach. I'm only going to eat between this time and this time. And that's how we are for our tech fasting. So when I'm on these one-on-one dates with each of my children, Eric, there's no electronics, not my phone, not my teenager's phone, no one's phone. My wife can't even reach me. And it's just, because you know, as an entrepreneur, you get that one text, that one phone call. You're not there. You're not present. You're off in fix
Totally.
This. Yep. So there's none of that. And the third rule is they plan the day. They plan the day and I'm going to go all in. So it's whatever they want to do. Some people go, oh, it's going to be expensive. I've had a lot of free board meetings where it's at the beach, certain beach they wanted to go to, and that's what they want to do. So I go all in on their planning. And with that planning, Eric, I've found that these are a magic day to not only have fun, but it's where I've given some of my most genuine compliments and sincere apologies to my children. And as an entrepreneur, I'm always rushing past things, and we think we give a compliment and we don't. We give ourselves immunity from an apology. Well, you know how hard I'm working. You know what I'm doing. It's been on those days that I finally slowed down and been like, you know what? I was kind of testy and gruff last week, and I want to apologize. That wasn't fair to you. It was nothing you did. There was things I was working on. So I'm sorry. And let me tell you, when you actually have the humility, which is not natural for me, I'm a stubborn entrepreneur, to apologize or give that genuine compliment, it is an absolute cementing of the relationship.
Absolutely.
So it's again, you can see this. We could write this all on the back of a napkin, Eric, what we do every quarter, 4 to 5 hours, one-on-one, intermittent tech fasting, going all in on something they want to do for the day and have some conversation at the end to really solidify the day. That's it. That's our whole rhythm. And now it's being used by hundreds of thousands of people, which is pretty cool.
Amazing. I absolutely love it. How is it for the 2 of you, not only to work together, to live together, but also to work together? Because as much as I love my wife, I think that if we were to work together, I don't know which one of the 2 will kill each other first.
Well, and I'll let Jamie explain, but there's 3 pieces to our bucket. There's the family enterprise that Jamie is absolutely the head of, and the head of. There's our real estate enterprise, and I'm the head of that. And then there's our 18 Summers enterprise, our family education enterprise. And the 2 of us really run that together. So we have some separate buckets. We all cross over. Jamie helps in the real estate. I help in the family. We both do 18 Summers. But there's 3 main buckets, I'd say, that we really work in. And we try to communicate best and understand roles and responsibilities in each bucket, I'd say, to help solidify the best way.
Sure. And we just play to our strengths. I mean, we each use what we're naturally good at, and we support where we're not. So for example, Jim's not high on details, and I call myself detail girl. I have to hold on to details for everybody at all times in all places. And so sometimes I get to where I really wish Jim could pull off a detail for me, if that makes it, like plan a date night, plan a trip, something like that, because I'm a woman and because I do handle a lot of things, work and in the home. We have 5 children. It's nice to sometimes have like something for me, right? Well, as Jim and I communicate, and I think, wow, Jim, he's not high on details. And so we had this communication because, like you said, we're working together, we're playing together, we're living together. And I said to him, he said, I really want to plan these things, but I'm terrible at details. And I feel like you know this and you just watch me struggle. And in that moment, because we're so good at communicating, we really have to have great communication all the time. I said, you just say, hey, I'd really love to do X, Y, and Z with you. Could you plan that for us? And I'm all in and I'm excited because you had the idea and you came to me and you said, here's what I need from you. And so I think really the lesson in all of it is playing to our own strength. I still get what I want and what I need because I realize what his strengths are and I realize what mine are. And yes, in knowing your strengths, you know your weaknesses, but really I like to prefer, to highlight each other's strengths. And so,
example.
I
think with that too, Eric, like that was such a clean example of like, hey, I'm really good, and then ask for help. Jamie's learned the same thing where, look, when you're in business, sometimes there's going to be uncomfortable phone calls or confrontation. And I have a very high threshold for that. And Jamie just is like, I'd rather not. And so it's always like,
to reschedule my dentist.
So yeah, it's like, I don't want to call the dentist. Yeah, she's just not a confrontational. I'm not confrontational, but I don't mind handling a confrontational situation. It's just what I learned in entrepreneurship. There could be that or difficult. And I've gotten pretty good and versed in that. So Jamie would be like, could you call this vendor or something? And I'm like, absolutely. And it just, because it's such a non-event for me, I think we've really gotten better at honoring each other's superpowers. And I would say one of the ways too, which ties into our new book that's coming out for the family board meeting, is not only this one day a quarter with each children, it's one day a week with
your spouse.
We
created a date night with a question.
Date night with a question. This one rhythm, Eric, has definitely ignited and probably saved our marriage. Now we're at ignition, but probably saving, for
because going back
times.
To the original example that I gave, we needed a date night. We needed something for just us. And what ended up happening is even after we agreed to do date night,
I'd mess it up.
Detail man wouldn't plan anything for it. And so date night would roll around and I'd be like, I guess he doesn't actually want to date me. And so because I was coming at it with this like resentful, I was owed something. Honestly, I was like butthurt, for lack of any better expression. I wanted to be wanted and needed and pursued. And so what ended up happening when these details were falling through the crack and he wasn't, showing up to date me, I thought it just went deeper and deeper into this like hurt or resentment or separation. And then once I realized, hey, if I plan it, he gets so excited for date night. Wednesday morning comes up and he's like, we have a date tonight. This is awesome. And if a sitter cancels, he's so disappointed.
Yeah, our sitter was sick this week and we never miss Wednesday night date night. And I was like,
What's really cool too is as it comes around, and it's the same way with working together. Like I know that I have to show up. So if we have a podcast with you, Eric, if I'm irritated with Jim, like nothing matters. Like there's never going to really be an issue between us that's going to matter as much as showing up present for each other so that we can show up present for you. And I just think that like having the parameters of knowing, like Wednesday, we show up for date night. And sometimes I don't want to show up for date night. And he probably feels the same way sometimes. But I tell you what, always by the end of date night, I'm like, oh gosh, he's just the greatest, and I'm loving holding his hand. And I'm like, this is why we do it. This is why I show up, because even when I don't want to show up, when I show up, I'm reminded again and again and again why he's mine.
Well, it's an ongoing process and I have to work at it all the time, right?
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a process. And we added these simple questions that bring you deeper because we would show up to date night and because he's so important, he would have his phone and everyone would need to talk to him. But then as we learned,
my phone is not invited on date night, Eric. You won't be able to reach me. It's off and in the glove box.
So as we carved the block, we started adding other rules, so no phones. And then we added one simple question. And, we're not allowed to talk about the kids. We're not allowed to talk about work. We're not allowed to talk about home projects or how dirty my van is. Like we have to talk about it's us, we show up for each other. And so it's questions.
Well, maybe give some context because what we found when you go on date, and I'm sure you first of all, getting it set we'll come back to scheduling, but you get there and then all of a sudden you're still running and you're kind of like, well, how was the kids' day at school? What errands do we have to run?
It's just kind of a shower vibration.
It's very, it's not really, but when we found we would actually prepare some questions and ask one or two questions and you ask a few deep questions, it's like you're dating all over again. And we've learned stuff about each other in the last year that we haven't known in a decade plus.
Well, now we do workshops. We do date night with a question workshops for couples and organizations. And we've had people married as long as 35 years say, I never knew this about my spouse. So simple things. Wow. Who was your favorite teacher or coach and why? Yeah. And then on into things like, what do I do that turns you on the most in the bedroom? So there's things like,
it can go either way.
It can go either way, but they're all relationship building questions. None of the questions start arguments. Like, like we were very intentional because we have a deck of cards. I should have a
we'll send Eric one.
Yeah, we'll send you some. But we do have date night with a question. They have 52 questions. So the intention is that after a year, you've had 52 dates, you've gone through 52 questions, and you're that much closer with your spouse.
Yeah, I love it.
So in a roundabout way of your big question, how do we work together? Date night every Wednesday night, 5:30 to 8:30 has been such a good thing, not only for our personal relationship, but our working relationship. And I would say the only time we talk about work is when it's dream stuff. Like, could you imagine if we're working with entrepreneurs in this and doing this in Costa Rica, or if we build this and it's more dream state, adventure state. Yeah. So but that's been an absolute key. And I think that's whether you work with your spouse or don't, that is something, if you will do a weekly date night, same bat time, same bat channel, and have some deeper questions, it can be a game changer in your relationship.
That's awesome. Do you count as a date night if you go to dinner with friends or if you go to a theater? Or is it like no phone, no talking besides you, the two of you?
We invite friends on date night sometimes, probably like once a month.
Yeah, our goal is once a month to be with another couple because that in itself is really exciting too, getting to other perspectives or other relationships or... Yeah, so that's fun too.
Yeah, but one-on-one time, like we said.
We go to a lot of concerts.
Yeah, we love live music. So that's a great date night thing. So, but yeah, so it's as long as you're getting out. But Eric, we went to some very big EO groups and taught this. We asked the question, how many of you have a set day and time when you go on a date with your spouse? And less than 10% of the room raised their hands. I said, how many of you have not gone on a date in the last 6 months? Half the room raised their hand. These are very smart, well-intentioned people. And we're going, oh my gosh, the solution doesn't have to be as complicated as the problem. What if we get this one rhythm going and keep it going? You know what I mean? It's almost like getting up and exercising every morning. You're probably going to be in better shape. So same thing with this one marriage rhythm as well.
Absolutely. I love everything you're both saying. I can't help but thinking what you just said about the EO entrepreneurs and all my friends. I'm thinking about most of them. My closest friend, actually, very successful in business, and also they're very balanced in their private life, which is not necessarily always the case. But I was thinking, people like Steve Jobs, phenomenal what he did for the world and how he changed technology and marketing and everything. I don't want my daughter to end up with a guy like him.
No.
Together.
you know the story I tell about Steve Jobs, right?
No.
A few days after Steve Jobs passed away, and it was about a guy named Isaacson, Walter Isaacson. He was Steve Jobs.
Yes, the biographer. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said Steve Jobs spent his final days surrounded by close family and used the opportunity for final interviews to explain to his children why he wasn't there for them. And supposedly Isaacson asked him, he said, Steve, are you glad you had a family? Are you glad you had children? And Steve fired right back, man, it's 10,000 times better than anything I've ever done. Here he is on his deathbed with unbelievable accolades and victories in business, but used his final days in interviews to explain why he wasn't there for them and saying it was 10,000 times better than anything he's ever done.
It's incongruent.
It's incongruent. So it was just, I'm like, wow, there's the philosophical share of a lot of different religions that a person receives extreme clarity at the end of their life. And I'm like, I think Steve Jobs just left me some important clues. Ever since that day, it was in 2011, I've said, wow, I don't want to be doing final interviews. And honestly, at that time in 2011, Eric, if I had the rug of health pulled out from me in 6 months, I would be doing the same thing. I would have had to been doing those final interviews. I would have had to been explaining to Jamie why, and I'm sorry, and gosh, where was I? And I think that's a constant struggle, but it is so much more in my awareness over this last decade. It's definitely shaped a better lifestyle for us. I think a more...
Because you can reason away, like you said a little bit ago, you can say, well, I'm working so hard, but I'm providing this life, but we get to go here and here. And oh, you get to attend the greatest schools. And oh, you don't have to wear Target tennis shoes or whatever it may be. And you yourself out of the situation because you think that you're playing some big role when all anybody really wants is you.
I'm totally with you, and I always tell my kids, you live in a bubble, and that's why we hope for you, we're protecting you, we're offering you, but please realize it's a bubble. And when I hear, when I go on this Facebook page of community or Nextdoor app or stuff like that, and when I see what people are complaining about, and I'm thinking, right. And I'm glad I'm not a woman in Iran right now, or a Yazidi being taken by ISIS, exactly. Just to put it in perspective.
Yeah. They're, as we call, first world problems.
Yeah. And I think the beautiful thing about your family and our family both is we've experienced things very different, gotten through foster care and adoption and, the most vulnerable population of these children, and being able to see the atrocities that happen here in the US as well with children and you seeing it, from the country in which you came from, and you having this wisdom and lineage of what you've seen, and it makes you operate differently in the world, and it gives you such a greater perspective and appreciation. I think when your children experience that, that's one of our biggest things is service and contribution, because I don't want children that sit on Nextdoor app bitching about the plumber that, didn't proper English or whatever it may be. But it's like, come on, people, that's not real life.
Not at all. Not at all. Jamie, Jim, I have spent hours listening to you. I love both of you. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, to be in your presence. I cannot end this podcast without asking the question that has been brought to me by our common friend, Jason Gaignard. Thanks to him, we know each other. So when we're going to meet face to face in a year with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
So we are relaunching the family board meeting this summer. As we referenced, this is kind of a dream come true. We always wanted to have a summertime release so that we can kick it off right. And so I hope, what we would be celebrating is a greater impact on family. We also, Eric, we have a second book being released in the fall in November, and it's the Passive Income Playbook. So we are working to teach other families how to live a legendary life through passive income, which is how we've achieved what we do through real estate. Yeah. So that's how we've been able to get to a place of enjoying our family. So we actually have, it's one of these, like, the year started with like, oh, what do we have going on? Oh, nothing much. And now we're like, wow, we have 2 books launching this year. That's really exciting. So, I just really hope that in a year that we are celebrating families impacted and changed by the message in which we were meant to bring.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you both. How can we get in touch with you?
You can find our book, The Family Board Meeting, on Amazon and also on audio. whatever.
I usually do this part.
Yes, she does this part. And then or go to 18summers.com. That's everything.
You could need.
All of our good
including our
products.
podcast, which you're going to be a guest on soon.
Yes, Eric will be a guest on 18 Summers Family Podcast.
Wonderful. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jamie and Jim, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all your wisdom. I love everything you're doing. I love your ideas. I love the content, 18 Summers. I'm glad you relaunching the family board meeting and also having this upcoming book in the fall about developing passive income for families. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please connect with me on LinkedIn or join the Facebook group, eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your network. Thank you. Goodbye.